Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our Tuesday Treasure program, where we go through some of the lesser seen objects in the museum's collection. My name, as always, is Nicole Carpenter. I am the Programs and Collections Director here at the Westport Museum for History and Culture. We are pleased to bring you this program free of charge, but we do have a suggested donation of $5 for all of our free programming to keep this unique content coming to you. We understand this is still a very difficult time for many, so we appreciate any support that you can give us. That includes following us on all of our social media accounts. If you have any questions, comments, or anecdotes that you'd like to share, please enter them in the comments box, and our chat moderator will do their very best to answer as many of those as they can. Today, we are going through golf. I want to start with a general history, as we always do, and then we'll jump into a couple of Westport stories before going through our objects in the collection. It is mostly agreed that golf originated from a game on the eastern coast of Scotland near Edinburgh, but this is still contested. Players would play this game by hitting a pebble over sand dunes and around tracks with a bent stick or club. This earliest game looks a little bit different from the modern game today, but it is considered one of the first. We do know that during the 15th century, when Scotland was preparing to defend itself from another invasion, the Parliament of King James II banned golf, as many were neglecting their military training to play the game. The ban lasted from 1457 until 1501. At that point, it received its royal seal of approval by King James IV of Scotland, as he was the first monarch to adopt golf in 1502. The popularity of the game of golf quickly spread throughout the 16th and 17th centuries across Europe. Mary, Queen of Scots, introduced the game to France while she studied there, and King Charles I brought the game to England. The first reference to golf being played at what's considered its hometown of St. Andrews was in 1552. Around the same period as it spread throughout Europe. The game of golf officially became a sport when the Gentlemen Golfers of Leith formed the first club in 1744, and they set up an annual competition with silverware prizes. The first ever 18-hole course was also constructed at St. Andrews, though this occurred in 1764, and it established the now recognized standard for the game of golf. At this time in the 1760s, golfers were using handcrafted wooden clubs, typically made from beech, with shafts of ash or hazelwood. The balls were made from compressed feathers wrapped in stitched horsehide. The Open Championship, known as the British Open today, was golf's first major championship, and it was first played in 1860 at the Prestwick Golf Club. Around this time, the Industrial Revolution swept through Europe and through the United States, and that helped the expansion in the popularity of golf, and it actually brought the game to the US. Through the Industrial Revolution and actually its introduction to North America, the game became relatively more accessible. It also became slightly more affordable for everyday people, except at the most professional levels. By 1900, there were more than 1,000 golf clubs that had been formed in the United States alone. And according to a 2021 survey by the National Golf Foundation, golf is now played in 206 countries and territories. That's about 82% of the world today. And there are courses around the globe that total more than 38,000. Now, there are two places that I'd like to highlight here in Westport that have a history with golf, or mini golf, and one of them has to do with the Bacchial family. Originally hailing from Poland, the Bacchiel family owned and operated Westport Lanes, which of course was known very much for its bowling alley in today what is the former Pier 1 shopping center on Post Road. The Bacchiels farmed the land that they purchased at 41 Old Road in 1917. They opened the bowling alley in 1958. But just prior to that, in 1954, they actually owned and operated a miniature golf course. Longshore is another property that today holds a golf course. Longshore originally was farmland, one of the original plots of land owned by the Bankside farmers in the 1640s. But by 1929, it was owned by Frederick E. Lewis, one of the inspirations for the famous character Jay Gatsby. We know that in 1929, Lewis sold the property to a man named Patrick Powers, who made it a private country club. Opening in 1930, the club included a bathing beach with cabanas, a yacht basin, tennis courts, a cocktail pavilion, saltwater swimming pools, log cabins, and of course, a golf course. The club was very popular for local families as well as celebrities. Just a couple of names that you might recognize include Betty Davis, Henry Fonda, Zsa Zsa Gabor, and Gregory Peck. Frank Sinatra apparently stayed at cabin number 10 one summer, and the baseball great Babe Ruth apparently played several rounds of golf while he was visiting for medical treatment here in Westport. The club changed hands again, and in 1960 the site was acquired by the town of Westport, which still owns it today, and of course operates the Longshore Golf Course. The first object for you all tonight is a golf tee. As you can see, this golf tee measures about 2 1/8 inches long. It is blue in color, and it features writing that says, Allen's Clam and Lobster, Westport, Connecticut, with the phone number 203-226-4411. This stamp is slightly scuffed, and the blue color of the tee is slightly chipped. We know that this golf tee dates from the mid-20th century, and of course, from its stamp, we know that it was, of course, made by Allen's Clam and Lobster Shack. In the early 1900s, Captain Walter Allen, also known as Cap, opened his clam and oyster shack on the banks of the Sherwood Mill Pond. The oysters came from the beds in the pond and the nearby cove, and Cap often hand-shucked them himself. Over time, his shack grew into Allen's, which was a rustic family eatery. You can find the recipe for the Clam House's famous chowder on the museum's virtual site at virtualhistorywestport.org. The town of Westport purchased the land that used to be Allen's Clam Shack in 1999, but after many years of debate of what to do with the property, the Clam House was demolished in 2004. Today, the property is operated as a park. This golf tee was used as a promotional item for the restaurant, and it remains with us today. This was also a very recent addition to the museum, as it was donated in 2021. The next set of items that I want to show you is a full set of golf clubs, along with a bag. This item was donated to the museum in 1998 by Robert T. Galt. And we know that the bag and clubs were owned by Helen Taylor Galt, Robert's mother. Along with the clubs, there were 3 golf balls, an unlabeled golf tee, and a pencil stub in the bag at the time of his donation. The first club that we see is an iron. It has a steel head, a wooden shaft, and a metal butt cap. This golf club dates to around 1925. And engraved on the head, you actually see the words Niblick, Croydon, R8, forged, heated, treated, and the name Harry Carson. Engraved on the metal butt cap is patent applied for. The Crichton Company was a customer of the Rahway Valley Railroad, or RVRR, located in New Jersey. Not only was the RVRR built to serve the Bolster Soul Golf Club in Springfield, it also shipped golf clubs being manufactured by Crichton in Maplewood. A subsidiary of Crichton & Company, Crichton for many years was a premier manufacturer of golf clubs. The parent company was founded in 1860 by August Crichton, an experienced toolmaker, and it grew to be a manufacturer of tools of all shapes and sizes. Crichton & Company began forging heads for golf irons after the end of World War I. They became so popular that the company began manufacturing a complete line of clubs under the name of Crichton. These irons usually featured a screw-type butt cap, which you can see here, which was patented by the firm in 1925, and it featured a hole in the middle exposing the wooden shaft. Crichton became a premier manufacturer of golf clubs due to its adopting formed steel shafts in their clubs instead of the hickory shafts we see here. Crichton drew its own steel shafts on special machinery designed by themselves. During World War II, Crichton converted its manufacturing plants to produce signal antennas for the Army Signal Corps and for the British and Canadian governments. We know that the company continued to manufacture golf clubs into at least the early 1950s. The second club is a mid-iron with also a wooden shaft. The club is thought to date around 1920, and engraved on its head you will see the words, Alex Taylor, Atco, 22 East 42nd Street, New York City. There are also engravings of an animal and a crown. Born in Brooklyn on July 4, 1875, Alexander Lindsay Taylor was the son of John B. Taylor, a Scottish immigrant, and Martha Taylor from England. He began working at a sports goods store known as Johnson and Stoutenburg in New York in 1897, where he worked as a clerk. He was able to buy half of the business in 1901, when it became known as Johnson and Taylor. In 1908, he bought out the shares of Johnson and moved the company to East 42nd Street. Now the company was known as the Alex Taylor Company. It sold a wide range of sporting goods from baseball to curling items, but golf clubs, balls, and bags were a part of the mix, and the company began manufacturing its own golf clubs in the Atco range with a T with a shield as the maker's mark. This was registered as a trademark in 1915. Now, unfortunately, our clubs don't show this marking, but they do, of course, have other symbols. During World War I, the advertising for Atco took on a military aesthetic. It began to produce items such as uniforms, greatcoats, military bedrolls, and sleeping bags, in addition to its sporting items. The store focused very much on baseball, and it benefited from being chosen as a supplier for the Clark C. Griffin Bat Ball Fund, which sent baseball equipment to soldiers overseas. The company began at 16 East 42nd Street, then moved to 26 East 42nd Street in 1917. But by 1920, it had bought a building at 301 Madison Avenue between 41st and 42nd. It kept a 42nd Street address and advertised the business as the Golfers' Headquarters. Huge liquidation advertisements began to run in June of 1932, as the entire resale stock needed to go, quote, in order to concentrate our time and resources on the development of our wholesale and camp department. Despite no longer holding its golf equipment, the company was still going strong in March of 1955 when Alex Taylor, its president, died in his New York City home. The third club that you see here also features a wooden shaft. This club dates to around 1900, and engraved on its head is the text, Harry Carson, Connecticut, Westport, CC. Also featured on the head of this club are symbols of flowers, as well as a symbol of a club and an arrow. Not much is known about the manufacturer of this club as it's not featured, but the name Harry Carson does appear in the American Golf Guide of 1920 and 1922. Featured is a listing for the Westport Country Club, which was established in 1911, and it features 18 holes and 6,100 yards in total length. It also lists par as being 73. It also features grass greens. This listing includes the names of the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. But it also lists the entry, quote, professional Harry Carson. It advertises the course as being 1 mile from New York City, and it can be reached by streetcars. It also lists the charges for visitors, which were $1.50 a day on the weekdays and $2 on Sundays. Caddies were also listed as being available. If you know more about Harry Carson and his relation to the Westport Country Club, we encourage you to enter any information that you have in the comments box. We would love to hear a little bit more about this professional that was at the country club. The next club also doesn't have very much information, but it is also a mid-iron with a wooden shaft, dated to around the year 1900, and it features the engraving, warranted, hand-forged, L, special 1 mid-iron. Again, if you have any insights into this club, we would love to know a little bit more. And the last golf club is a little bit different from the rest. It features a wooden head, but its shaft is actually steel. Now, this is a driver, and it dates from around 1910. The sticker on the steel shaft reads, Bristol Steel Golf Shaft, patented November 22nd. Other patents pending. Bristol, Connecticut, made in USA. In the early 1920s, an American firm called Bristol Steel in Bristol, Connecticut, developed a seamless tubular golf shaft, which was a major advancement in golf equipment at the time. It became the standard and is still used. A modification of it is still used today. All of these clubs, as well as its ownership, points towards the growing interest of women playing golf in the past as well as the future. Women are still a smaller group in the golfing community, but their presence has been growing, as well as interest in the last couple of years. Throughout the pandemic, golf was an interest, and it saw record growth within the last couple of years. And this bag points towards the interest that women held in the past. One thing that is still of note in golf is that diversity, while growing, is not as high as it is in other sports. Golf still remains an expensive pastime, and it still has a ways to go before it is truly accessible to all. The last item that we have to show you during our program is another golf tee. This wooden tee advertises Bogey's Grill. This stake is painted white with black text. And the black text reads, Bogey's Grill and Tap Room, 227, Golf, Westport, Connecticut, 06880. Some of the text on the golf tee, especially the words tap room, are faded and starting to crumble. This is part of the reason that we keep these tees in our collections area so that no other deterioration can occur. Bogey's Grill and Tap Room, once a very popular restaurant in Westport, was located at 323 Main Street. Of course, the grill went out of business and today is owned by another restaurant. Much like the Allen's golf tee, this was used as an advertisement and was very collectible, or at least was a fun keepsake to take after your meal. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed all of the items related to golf in Westport. And again, if you have any stories to share about golfing in Westport or anything that you might have that's related to our history of this club and ball sport, please enter them in the chats box. Tune in next time to survey some of the sculptures in the museum's collection. Thank you so much for joining us.